All right, here we are. We are live.
Welcome
Episode
in.
21 of the Professional Casual.
The only one.
Restart the damn podcast.
Yeah, episode 21 of the Professional Casual Fans podcast. We just found out that last episode was episode 20. Did we do anything for it? No. Did we know it was episode 20? No. But after reflection, I'm realizing we didn't do anything. We decided to go big or go home here. So me and Cole created a child out of each of our own DNA. We didn't do it that way. We just created.
It was spliced. It was created in a lab.
Created a human being to be our producer.
Yes.
Over the weekend.
Producer. How we doing?
We have
and Chimer.
Young Mr. Ryan Palm. No relation to me at all. I just conveniently found another person that named Palm that relatively looks like me.
There we go.
It is my brother, Ryan Palm.
Same pie-shaped face.
Exactly. Same punchable face. But Ryan Palm is a student at McDonough High School. And just because he's young doesn't mean he doesn't have years of expertise in the production field.
No one's in the trenches. He's in the trenches, moving bodies.
I edited one video for a history presentation like a month ago, so that's what we're going in here with.
Exactly, and he's looking for hours. And we're a very kind of pristine organization here at PCFP, and we were like, dude, we know you're looking for like an internship, so we'll put you on. So he's our social media manager / producer.
I said, we're not going to pay you at all. We're going to bring you in. It's going to be a great time.
For experience.
Exactly. It's going to be incredible. But we're really happy to have him on. And he's probably smarter than me and Cole combined. So he's also a high school football prospect himself as a tackle or guard.
Yeah, so if
wide
he says
receiver,
anything out of
they want to throw me in
and
there,
gets drafted later in life.
Exactly, they will come back to this.
They'll show this one, where I said professional casual or whatever I said to start off.
The professional vaginal. What?
Professional vaginosis. All right, so without any further ado, I guess we can just jump right into it. We had a crazy weekend of NFL super wild card weekend that entailed not much super to it. In fact, we had a bunch of blowouts and one close game.
A lot of backups this weekend I've seen.
Proudest thing I can say coming out of this weekend is that the Steelers weren't the worst blowout of the weekend. And
in fact, people they held their own. People had some respect for them coming out of that one.
Yeah. Besides all the NFL meme accounts, they're on our heads right now, and I'm just like,
And Mike Tomlin walked out of the press conference. Someone asked him about his future,
and everyone's just like, "Oh, 10-7. Oh, Mike Tomlin, another non-losing season. That's what you can hold on to." And it's like, bitch, you're just mad because you've had nothing for years.
You got to respect. I mean, they're still just a quarterback away. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Well, when you're that's the thing about being middle of the pack, though. Like, you're never like in that top QB prospects because they say middle of the road is the worst road to be on. You either want to be at the top or the bottom because at least you can like retool at the bottom.
Just a lot of roads.
Yeah, all the roads.
Hella roads. You got top road, back road, fork in the road, middle road, everything.
That is the fork in the road. When you hit all three roads.
Yeah, exactly.
As
a new bottom, and middle. When you're making that decision.
We barely make the playoffs.
Every time are just like straight line.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys put up a pretty good fight. But before we get to that game, we should probably go in chronological order here so our millions of fans don't get confused. First game of the weekend, first game on the ledger, we had the Cleveland Browns led by Mr. January himself, Joseph Flacco. Lead them into Houston, Texas to face off against C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. And, for the first quarter, I'd say quarter and a half, this thing was a good game. I mean, they went back and forth. It was not what you expected. Like, they had those 4 drives in a row where they just, like, went back and forth, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. And then the Joe Flacco that we know of in the past few years reared his ugly head and threw back-to-back pick sixes, and from then it was just kind of a boat race from there.
I was ready for a shootout after the first couple drives. I was like, here we go. The only way Houston is gonna win this game if it's a shootout, because CJ Stroud might be able to pull something off. And then it all went bad for their own team. That I thought it might go bad for the Texans, and that Browns defense might lock down CJ Stroud, and finally he looks like a rookie. But that man just shredded them all day. It felt like they had no stop for him, and then by halftime, it felt like they were a little demoralized and just came out in the second half and laid a goose egg.
Yeah, absolutely. Very poetic, honestly, that Deshaun Watson had to watch his former team with all the picks that he got traded for just absolutely pummel his team in the first round of the playoffs. It's kind of
that's the great thing in sports.
God has a sense of humor, as they say, as he just sat there and watched his predecessor. Or would that be his predecessor? Is that how that works, right? So,
I'm pretty sure that's what that is.
Is it? Yeah. And just watch him just light him up.
It wasn't the direct
ridiculous, man.
Unbelievable, yeah.
But
yeah, for being direct. I mean, he
talking about Davis Mills.
Yeah. Davis Mills got a few snaps in there.
Davis Mills was a dog, man.
Technically, Davis Mills ended up winning that game. This was the one at the end of the game.
Really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but CJ Stroud is just ridiculous, and the ball just jumps off his hand. And, I think you saw Nico Collins is really kind of coming into his own as a number 1 receiver. That'll be very fun to see him and Tank Dell next year. And then my hot take now is I think DeAndre Hopkins goes back to Houston.
That'd be fun.
Sick.
I'd like it. Stroud's a fucking phenom. But, all those picks, it's just the storyline of Deshaun Watson coming back and just watching the team built out of what they what the Browns traded him for, or for
him. Up.
I think in a weird way that the Browns are in a weird situation now, because it's not Watson had that really good game against Baltimore before he went out. But even in that game, that first half, he didn't look very good. Second half, he came out and played a lot better. And they're kind of in the situation where they're kind of I feel like meh on him. And I think by far, if you were going to make a move like that, like they did to trade for somebody like Watson, you needed it to be knocked out of the park. And in no way, shape, or form has he knocked anything out of the park. And so, you look at him going into next year, I don't think there's any doubt Watson's their quarterback, but I feel like he has to really play at almost a borderline MVP level for them not to be reconsidered in a different direction.
At this point, the Browns have lost that trade 5 times over,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
his contract is what, this time last year, his contract is what just blew up the QB market. And for him to be the first of all those quarterbacks to get paid, he's just done absolutely nothing. Him and Herbert, honestly. Get paid in the way that they did, and then just follow it up.
And then he got hurt, who's been trash this year, too.
Yeah.
After getting paid.
Angels have an entirely new conversation that I don't think anybody, if you asked them a year ago today, would think that they were in. But before we get to that, so we covered, Cleveland. They got boat raced. Did not look like the defense that we were used to seeing. And like you said, if they wanted that thing to be a game, they needed the defense to take over and get some stops and kind of make Stroud uncomfortable. Didn't do any of that, not even close. And then the next game was the Ice Bowl between the Chiefs and the Dolphins. I think going into that game, everybody was pretty certain that the Chiefs, no matter if it was 10-0, 7-3, 28-0, I think everybody went into that game going barring something incredible, Kansas City is going to win this game.
Yeah.
And it didn't really have anything. I mean, I think the weather obviously had a lot to do with it, but even with the weather aside, like Miami has just been such a Trojan horse. Like they're just like there's
Absolutely,
just
yeah.
I don't know if that's the right analogy, but they're just like completely empty inside. I guess like they just had no. I mean, they had injuries, but even without them, anytime they face like a good team, like they just kind of crumbled. And
They're good old
and it
reverse
really,
Trojan horse.
it all pins down to Tua pretty much because in that game they lost 50% of their defense. They're in a tough spot, and quarterback's got to step up, and he just could not do it. He's got one of the best offensive minds that the league has. He's got some of the best and the fastest weapons the league has, and he just could not get it done. And I think it's time to have a tough conversation about Tua.
No,
we had a lot of tough conversations.
The Dolphins just don't beat good teams like all year long. Like I saw a stat today that was just wild. It was Dolphins fans had murdered two of the opposing team's fans this year. They had more kills on the opposing team fans than they did have against winning teams. They had one against winning teams, one win.
Yeah, it was a definitely. I mean, I remember early in the year when everybody anointed them the Super Bowl favorites when they hung 70 on the Broncos, and it's always those teams that like start out like that, they end up fizzling. And I think the other week when they got absolutely destroyed by Baltimore, it was very apparent that they were just not in the same class as a lot of these top tier teams. And I think really, I mean, that roster from top to bottom is kind of stacked. I mean, offensively, they're the fastest team maybe we've ever seen. Defensively, they have really, really good players up front and on the back end. And I do think, like Ryan said, like Tua is the ultimate question mark. And I don't think he's the guy that can lead them to where they want to go. I think they're in the quarterback market this offseason, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see Dak Prescott in a Miami Dolphins uniform next year.
Bam. That's even hotter than the fucking DeAndre Hopkins to Texans. Like DeAndre to Houston.
Just throwing takes out there, seeing if anything sticks. Something's got to hit.
Yeah, he's just like Dak to the Dolphins.
Not looking at any of the salary cap stuff, not looking at any of the salaries or contracts. But listen, Tua, I think everything you need to know about him has to do with that throw he had at the end of that game against Buffalo, where game's on the line, division's on the line. You have a chance to drive down the field and win the game. And he throws into triple coverage, like right to a Bills defender who was running the route for, I think it was Cedric Wilson he was trying to throw it to. And
no, he was throwing to Chase Claypool.
There we go, the GOAT, Chase Claypool.
It was terrible. I remember that so distinctly because I was like, you're throwing to goddamn Chase Claypool, you idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are just certain quarterbacks like in the league where when they are behind in situations like that, you have that gut feeling of like they could win this game. And Tua's just not one of those, like Kirk Cousins, even though he has his struggles with picks, it's like this guy could genuinely drive down the field and win this game. Allen's like that, and Tua just doesn't have that streak in him.
Yeah, no. Been able to
he
prove
really
it many
struggles against zone. And the Ravens, like I said, really kind of exposed him too. I mean, he had a few of those. That one drive where Miami got I think it was maybe a fumble. I think they got the Gus Edwards fumble or something. And they were like right there at the 50-yard line. It was like, oh, they're back in business. And then he just threw an interception instantly. And it's like he just, he's got two of the best receivers in the league, fastest duo in the league, and they just couldn't do anything with it. And
I think fastest backs in the league.
Yeah, like just all over the field, he's got speed.
Speed.
Yeah, so we'll see what next year brings. Maybe they give him another year, but it's one of those things where owners get impatient, and the Dolphins owner has never been known to be a very patient chap. So I don't know where it goes. And they were, keep in mind, the year after they drafted Tua, they were in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So, it's not like they haven't pondered this before.
They've always not been the biggest fan of Tua down in Miami. And, he doesn't help his case right now.
No, but Kansas City also played a good game. They kind of looked like themselves a little bit. And that's the thing, man.
Yeah.
Once you get to the playoffs and these teams have kind of the metal and they know what they're doing, like Kansas City does, it's really hard to kind of figure out how that's going to play compared to how they looked in the regular season. And, I think they got that running game going. I think a key for them is Pacheco. If they can keep Pacheco going, he seems to have like one run a game that kind of like just absolutely breaks the other team. And if they can do that, like it's who knows what they can do. That AFC picture is kind of wide open.
The AFC's looking tough right now. Looking real tough. Are the Ravens scared of Houston? Oh.
They might be, man. Throat's getting a little tight. I don't know. But moving on, I guess.
After week one?
Moving to the next. Yeah, in week one, he did give them a run for their money. I remember that. It was a closer game than anybody thought it was.
Ravens starters haven't played in 2 weeks. They're going to be tight going out there. Yeah. So it's anyone's game.
Another little thing here that's weird. A weird little kind of quirk, I guess, with the Ravens is they have two guys, Anthony Weaver, who's like their assistant coach, and obviously Mike McDonald, are fielding interviews this week from teams, Commanders being one of them, who are interested in hiring them for head coaching. And it's one of those weird things in the NFL where it's like these guys are interviewing for these jobs, but they're also preparing for like the biggest game of their life, basically, or one of the biggest games of their lives. So it's kind of that weird thing. It's like if I were the Ravens or any team really in the playoffs, I'd be like, look, you got to wait until after the season's over before you start doing these interviews. And I feel like if I was one of those coaches, I'd be like, it might speak even higher, like to you, who you are, I guess, if you say like, look, I'm interested. I understand if you got to move before, I'm done here, but like we have a job to do before the end of the season. Yeah. But after we're done, then we can talk. But they're taking Zoom interviews, this week, and I feel like that's a little interesting quirk too. Also with the Ravens, like you said, with the bye week and the players, and they could get Mark Andrews back. Who knows? That could be really big.
Yeah. Moving on to probably what most people would consider the biggest surprise of the weekend. Green Bay going into Jerry World and just giving them the good old clapping down because they did no remorse. Fucking
Jordan made sweet love. Jordan made sweet love to Michael Parsons.
They made him throw one more pass. He could have been the first person ever with a perfect passer rating to his first start, and they were like, "Let's throw the ball with 2 minutes left."
Dude, imagine looking though. Like I love Jordan Love, but like looking at his face and being like, "That's the guy that beat us." He's got like the dumbest looking face in the entire league. Looks like a fucking elf or something. I don't even know. But or like he looks like a character from like a Pixar movie or something.
Exactly.
He kind of does.
But yeah, they gave him the business, and I don't know how much I believe in Green Bay going to San Francisco. I don't think the Niners have that choke gene like the Cowboys do, because I think honestly, like once that opening drive touchdown was scored and they took like 7 minutes off the clock in the first quarter, I think you could see Dak and that entire offense kind of go out in the field like, yeah, all right. And then they go through it, and it was like, oh, all right. And then from that on, it's just kind of like Dak had that deer in the headlights look. And I mean, they picked Green Bay to win.
That whole team was flustered. As soon as something goes wrong, they're all just like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah. Like it was just, like I said, we both picked Green Bay to win, but I don't think either one of us expected it to be over in the first half like it was. Like that was just Matt LaFleur with a masterclass over Dan Quinn, who might see a few jobs that he was interviewing for shrivel up here.
Yeah, that really hurt Dan Quinn's stock. And what's wild is my Little League coach was like friends with Dan Quinn in college, and like remains in contact. He went to Salisbury, yeah. And
your coach is like, yeah, I don't really care to keep in touch with him anymore now.
He's like, ooh, nah. You know, I was hoping Dan Quinn would get another job, but you know, that does not help his case at all. Biggest game of the year, and your defense lays an absolute goose egg like that. Like, they could not stop the Packers offense. They couldn't buy a stop. Nothing was going their way. They were just outclassed completely.
Would be funny in the interview process, though. They're like sitting in the room with the owner and like the GM, and they're like, all right, so you're the coach of the Falcons and went to the Super Bowl. It was, big, you guys got that one of the biggest upsets and one of the biggest meltdowns in Super Bowl history. But, you got into the Super Bowl, showed leadership. Nice. Then you went to Dallas after you left Atlanta, and wow, you led one of the top defenses for the next, 3 or 4 years that you were there. And then, what is this? Got your ass cheeks spread wide open and slapped around by the Green Bay Packers, the youngest team ever to make the playoffs. And he's just sitting there with his bald head, just like.
Like it happens.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that happened, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, sometimes your boys ain't ready to go. I can't play the games, too.
I'm not putting on the pads, I got him there.
What do you want me to say? My ass still hurts from that game. What do you want me to say?
I was telling him all game to guard that motherfucker. It wasn't like I was like, leave him open.
It's not my fault we can't guard a parked car, okay?
I wasn't expecting the tight end to run a drag all the way across and then cut all the way up the field.
He's just like, Romeo Dobbs is the fastest man alive.
Romeo Dobbs masterclass.
Every single time.
Like, they got more talent than you think. Green Bay, they're going to be something.
You wonder, too, if the Jets are looking at that game. They're just looking at the Packers' success this season and thinking,
It's heartbroken. Yeah, it's like we literally stripped them of some of their best players.
Yeah, don't you know? It's going to be so tragic next year when Aaron Rodgers just isn't good at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't just Aaron. Maybe Aaron was actually holding them back. But yeah, I'm very happy for the Packers. Don't know how it's going to go in Santa Barbara next week. Can't say I feel good about it, but I think also that mentality.
You never know in the playoffs, but
that's one of those things where they could kind of have that mentality of like, hey, nobody even thought we were going to make it here anyway, so let's just go ahead out there and have a good time.
Packers, once upon a time, when Aaron Rodgers wasn't too established yet, that Super Bowl run, he was the 6th seed in that playoffs, which was at the time the last seed. And then they made
a very similar in a weird way.
They beat the Cowboys that year. Isn't that what happened?
They beat. I know they beat the Bears to go to the bowl,
and they beat the Eagles too. Yeah,
they beat the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think they beat the Giants. They may have beaten the Giants.
Eagles.
Yeah, that was a really good Eagles team that they beat. But moving on, I guess Packers win that game handily, and the nightcap for that game that evening was the most entertaining, closest game of the weekend. Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams visiting the Detroit Lions in a ravenous crowd at Ford Field, who did not cheer or applaud Matthew Stafford at all. In fact, they booed him the entire time. They booed his kids.
They were not a fan of Matt Stafford that night.
Yeah, they went right after him. And they had to
boot him on the way out.
Yeah. The Jared Goff chant
like that high school mentality in Detroit. The coach was like, "We are not wearing his jersey."
Yeah, had a jersey ban.
And
That's
we will
insane.
not cheer. And everyone was like, "Yeah."
Honestly, though, respect to Dan Campbell, man. Respect to that team, and I'm happy for Jared Goff. That had to feel really good to just kind of torch your old team, and I had that whole crowd chanting his name. Dan Campbell's what?
See Dan Campbell quote? It was like It was like something like, "You're good enough for us here, Jared."
Oh yeah.
He was like,
yeah, he was.
Jared
he
Goff.
went to Jared.
Yeah, he was like, "This is your city now," or something like that. And
He was like, we ate all the kneecaps tonight, baby. It was like Cheerios.
we're feasting on ACLs, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy for him. Funny on that after that game that Matthew Stafford was like, they were like, "Are you happy for the Detroit, the city of Detroit for that?" And he was like, "I'm happy for the players." It was like, damn, this man's petty as hell.
If
like
I was asked that question, like after losing to them, I'd be like, hell no. I lost this game so they could win. Like, why would I be happy right now?
Dude, how humiliating must that have been for him to have to run back into that tunnel after that game and just hear all it. And they were all waiting for it. But happy for Detroit.
Yeah,
they get to host another one. They're going to be hosting. Who are they hosting? They're hosting Tampa next week.
They will be hosting Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Yeah, big game, big show.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Yes. And moving on to the next day, our first game of the next day was the Pittsburgh Steelers
on the Rams team. That went my first Super Bowl team.
There's one down.
And that was both of them, wasn't it? I thought your other pick was
your Super Bowl team. The Pittsburgh Steelers faced off against the Buffalo Bills.
You know me. I take shots. Just so if it hits, I'm brilliant. You gotta take shots. So when they're hit, you're like, I'm a fucking bitch. They call me Aristotle.
What's that one quote where he's like, I'd rather go 0 for 40 than 0 for 11 because if I go 0 for 11, it means I stop shooting.
Exactly. That's me with the hottest takes. Like, look, Cardinals beat the Cowboys earlier this year. It was like the first shot of the year, though, and the confidence was soaring for the rest of the year. And I was like, I'm the guy. And I was not the guy.
Is he freezing for you, Andy?
He is.
He's just like...
he's like,
it's all good. We got it.
The funny thing is, though, like, none of the freezing shows up in the final production, so like we just look like jackasses right now. But yeah,
all good. He's freezing a lot for the folks at home.
Was the
guy in Guatemala.
I got the Patriots over the Bills earlier in the year too. So there were a couple where you take the shots and it works out.
That's crazy to think back on, isn't it?
He's still looking for his mid-season credit here. He was like, I did get the Super Bowl picks.
Yeah, dog. I gotta defend myself. But it's gone south in the playoffs.
I got one earlier in the year.
He's gonna be like cursing us out, freezing me like, you're
like Lamar. I'm like you could go like Lamar Jackson. I'm the MVP regular season shot taker.
Yeah.
But come postseason, the shots don't work.
It's like
he's doing something like completely heinous in one of the freezes. He's like,
we're like, all right, we're gonna cut it off now. But yeah, now we got to move on to your boys. I'm gonna let you take it over, Mr. Dennis.
What? Who's moving on?
We got to move on to your boys here.
The Bills
the Steelers?
Yeah.
This is your spotlight game, Zodi.
Fell down 14-0 early. George Pickens fumble hurts us, gives them a free touchdown, basically. Short field. I mean, we gave up a touchdown on their first drive. And then a fumble by Georgie P. Never good. And that was after a stop. So we punted it after our second drive. Get a stop. Looking like we might be in this. George Pickens.
Yeah, that was like crushing. It was when Mason Rudolph was like driving down the field and then threw that interception into the end zone. I think that was
that
game,
one was even
right
more
there.
crushing. Because that was when it was 14. But George fumbles it, gives them 14-0. Then we're marching again. And after another punt, we forced another punt. and we're marching again, and then 5 wide on 2-yard line is a crazy set for the 2-yard line to just be like, hey, we're 2 yards away from the end zone. Let's line up with all our receivers out there and just everyone run a curl or a out route. That's basically what everyone did.
That was rough.
And he
then just
tries
throw it
to
right
fit it
to
into the tightest out route of all time. Like, as soon as I see this out route and I see him throwing it, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, this is not where you want to be throwing this ball. Elam has him absolutely clamped up. But at first I thought it was caught because I was like, oh shit, that got through. And then they're like, oh, and Elam with the interception. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes
Elam knew he intercepted it. Like, he just turned around and the ball was in his lap.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was literally, he turned around at Mason Rudolph as the ball was hitting his hands. It was sad.
It was. Yeah. And then Josh Allen hitting us with the yabba dabba doo on the 52-yard touchdown run.
Oh my god!
Like, and when he runs, it just looks like he has no idea.
Up. He's like, I'm slow.
He's truly just playing mad.
And then I'm gonna just run you over. And then
and
later,
took
you
off.
see that at that one moment
for actually hitting him, and then he slides late, and it's like, oh my god.
But there's that one moment where he goes to slide, and then he just sees a gap, and then he just takes off.
Yeah,
that's so sweet.
Yeah,
so sweet.
And then later in the game, he actually slides, but it's a super late slide, and the boy's already leaning, and then he's like, "Oh, penalty!" And it's always a penalty for Josh Allen because that's Josh.
It was one of those where I thought the crowd goaded them into that because the crowd was up in arms, and they tossed it as soon as that was true crowd pressure right there, in the flesh. But
when we're working it back, when we need the stop too, because it was 24-17, because we somehow worked our way back into the game, and it's like, this giving me a little bit of hope. 24-17 after a couple solid drives, and our defense was getting stops, and then Porter went down on their field goal drive, and that was like, this is bad, because I know they're gonna just be able to. Every time they drop back, someone's going to be open because.
And then Miles Jack just decided, we're letting them ice this game. Miles Jack thought retired.
And Miles Jack, I don't even blame it on him, honestly, because we still could have got the stop after that. I mean, it was a penalty. Still could have got the stop, but. We just were like, hey, we're going to dive at him while he slides.
Yeah. Well, you froze there for a second again, and you were just like this. You're just like.
It was right after I let out a really loud laugh. So we all were just kind of like.
Yeah. I noticed that.
But yeah.
It's rough.
Nothing's worse than when we first we had that one episode where we were recording and I was talking this whole time, and I thought you were just intently listening, and it got to the point where I was like, this is he's really standing still listening, and you were just it was completely. I was like, and then it was literally frozen for 2 whole minutes.
Yeah,
but anyway,
sometimes it happens.
Yeah. It is what it is. You guys are going to next year. I think you guys are in the quarterback market as well.
If TJ's there, we win.
That's a hefty.
Of course, they made it the same thing. They made it the same thing they did with late career Big Ben, where they just kind of stuck with him, even though he wasn't that great.
So we're definitely sticking with Kenny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially since he came from Pitt. He's like a hometown hero.
Yeah. It was funny in that year when you guys made the playoffs by accident because of that Chargers-Raiders game. And Big Ben
that was wild.
He had to go to Kansas City, and Big Ben was like, I think we're going to get our ass kicked. He was completely honest about it. Everybody was like, all right.
He was like, I'm not feeling confident, but I'm excited to be in the playoffs, something like that. And it was like, oh my God. No, and what's the wild part is, We scored first on that game because TJ Watt gets a strip sack, recovers it, takes it to the house off rip against the Chiefs, and I'm like, we have a shot right now. Big Ben's going to the bowl one more time.
It's like, yeah, we're
then we
get
proceeded to get we get shit on for the next hour and a half.
That's what it kind of looked like it was going to happen in this game. Like it was like, I think that blocked field goal kind of put you guys back in it. But it was like, man, this is going to look like it's going to be a shit kicker. But speaking of shit kickers,
but we put up fight.
You did. That's all you can ask for. The evening game, the Eagles, who were looking to complete just the most monumental collapse that the NFL has ever seen. And they did it. They clinched it. I'm happy for them. They got their ass kicked. They made Baker Mayfield look like Patrick Mahomes. He was just slinging it all over the place. He had that last touchdown to Chris Godwin where he just lofted it up under pressure. And it was just like, man, they just can't stop anything. And it's one of those games.
When you're hitting plays like that, it's like, oh, shit. We showed up here on the wrong day.
Yeah. 32-9
this year's
score.
Version. Yeah, they're this year's version of the Vikings. It's like last year, the Vikings could they could put up points fast. They had a great offense, and but they showed these glimpses of being terrible. And as soon as they got to the playoffs, they just got fucking embarrassed by the Giants. And I think that that's what happened this year with the Eagles. Just got embarrassed by the Bucs. Exposed.
Yeah, it was. There was no adaptation. There was no adapting for the Eagles, and I think that their trick kind of got found out after the San Francisco game, and from there it was just an onslaught. They got slaughtered by the Cowboys, slaughtered by the Niners.
Didn't Nick Bosa say something? Bosa was like, "You got to play him laterally," and literally from that quote, he just couldn't be.
Yeah, it was just kind of, their defense, their secondary. There was signs that they were kind of older and slower, and then once that was kind of found, I think teams just kind of took advantage of it. And, we kept hearing this, Tampa could be a get-right game for them to get into the playoff. That was probably the best matchup for them. And it's they just lost to the Cardinals at home. They just got killed by the Giants to end the season.
Was the worst one.
Yeah, and, you really think that Buccaneers, who have a really good defense and are a playoff team, you think
the only Eagles game this year where I was genuinely maybe they're the same Eagles team from last year was that Bills game. That was the only game where they really looked good and they really earned a win. Every other game, it was one-score games.
And, I mean, Miami...
That one Giants game, if it wasn't for that shitty false start that they got, they would have lost.
Miami played well. They played with Miami. And,
the thing is, early in this year, they were beating, good teams. They were really beating, top-tier teams. And then, that San Francisco... the upper echelon game happened, and
oh my god,
they got cooked. And I think the week before they beat the Chiefs, and that was the highest point of their season. Sirianni's you guys can't talk shit anymore, and then he's one and done in the playoffs.
They went 2-6 after.
It's
now that everyone so badly wanted to post when the tush push when he took points off the board yesterday. On the false start on the extra point, he decided to go for 2, and the tush push gets absolutely just stymied, just stifled.
Yeah.
And I wanted to post that thing where he was if everybody could do it, everybody would do it. It's yes. And then everybody was there was a face mask. It was that was at the tail end of the play. That is not the reason that that play was blown
up. Got yanked out of the pile.
Yeah. Vita Vea stood up that line. Gaines, the lineman for Tampa Bay, got way underneath Jason Kelce and pushed him upwards, and that's everything. When Kelce gets lower than the defensive lineman, that's how they get that. And
that's how you know the collapse is complete when the tush push doesn't even work.
Yeah, the only thing you do
the collapse is over. It's the fall of the Roman Empire for them. They're
And now, they have a lot of question marks, and the biggest one now is, their leader on offense, pretty much, Jason Kelce, has retired after a phenomenal career. A lot of respect for Jason Kelce.
Only Eagles player I feel bad for right now. Truly.
No.
It's a rough way to end a career, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, now they kind of have to go into a season where I think they are unsure on Jalen Hurts. They're unsure of Nick Sirianni. I think we're going to know very early next season if they figured it out or if it is still a mess. So if they come out like first game of the season and they're struggling, it's like they don't like Jalen Hurts might not be the guy they thought he was, and Nick Sirianni is just not a leader. That's my thought process on it right now, but that could change. I just don't think Jalen Hurts wins you games, but we'll see, man. The Eagles are probably in the most.
Pay attention to their. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say they're in the weirdest situation in the league right now. Go ahead.
I was just saying, if you pay attention to their play calling, it's very unreliant on Jalen Hurts making plays. It's a lot of like bubble screens, it's wide receiver screens, or just straight up run plays. It's like as far as passes downfield, there's not a ton that Jalen Hurts has to do each game.
Yeah. You know, it will be interesting to see what they do. Sirianni, if he's still there, things could happen.
Maybe they'll replace him with Matt Patricia.
The Billster could make his way down and be like,
you never know.
This is where I'm going to happen. But now, I thought Devonta Smith was about to have a phenomenal night early last night when he was cooking. Then
they're going to him consistently. He looked like he was getting a lot of yards after catch.
And then just clamped. Nothing to be seen of really after that big touchdown play. Nothing to really.
You could see on that Eagles sideline, like they did not care. Like a lot of those guys, you could see like were just checked out of that game, and I think they're beaten down. I think there's not very much accountability. I think guys are pointing fingers, and on top of all that, they didn't have AJ Brown either. Like it was just like I said, one of the biggest collapses I think I've ever seen at the end of a season. And I mean, they truly were playing like a bottom 5 team in those last like 5 games. And yeah, man, I mean, it just all went wrong very quick. And they got a lot of soul searching to do. And unlike the Washington Commanders, they don't have top GM Adam Peters, and they don't have the number 2 overall pick. They do have Howie Roseman.
Their GM's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. He always be fleecing people in trades.
But he did have some pretty bad moves. That trade for Kevin Byard wasn't a good one. So
didn't work out this time.
Yeah.
Just casually slurped that coffee casually. He's like, yeah, I mean, he's made some bad. He's expecting us not to say anything about that.
We were just right. The first and last episode with our new producer. There's that gone. All right, anything else we want to cover, boys? I guess we can cover the our prediction show for the next week games.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We'll do that next. We'll do that on Thursday.
Did we want to talk about McCarthy and Sirianni possibly getting fired? What you think?
Yeah, I think McCarthy's gone. Sirianni stays. That's my call.
You think?
I think McCarthy and Prescott are both gone.
And Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they'd move it to Trey Lance?
I think something drastic has to happen.
I think they give Lance a shot.
That's wild.
Lance has never really had a fair chance,
I'll take that in Pittsburgh any day. Bring him.
Send him up.
Send him up. I will. We're going to the bowl if we did that.
That's what the Cowboys thought.
Yeah, but we got Coach T. Coach T is the guy.
I just think something needs to happen like drastic in Dallas because the status quo and what they're doing right now isn't working because they've now consistently for the past since Dak has been their starter had one of the best teams in the NFL. They've had a great defense. They have a phenomenal offense. He's got all the weapons. He's got a good running game. He's got a great offensive line. You can't really ask much more of his surroundings. And this game wasn't completely on him. The defense was awful. But, he did not play well. And, like, he was making the wrong reads. He threw a lot of bad passes. He let it get to him. And I think the bottom line is this happens every year. And, like, without fail, no matter how many times people say this is a different Dallas team, it's never a different Dallas team. So, like, you need to change something. I'm fine if they don't. Because if they want to stay on this path and just keep doing this every year, that's cool with me. But if they want to change, they need to get a new head coach, which I think it will be, and they need a new quarterback. Dak is a great quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback probably. But when it comes to when it really matters, he is a bottom half of the league.
Yeah.
He's number 32 out of 32. Probably lower.
Yeah, no, he's trash in the playoffs. That man shows any big moment. He's like, hey, that first half, I'm going to be complete dog shit. We're going to go down 48-16, and then I'm going to be nice with it.
I'm going to put up all my numbers in garbage time when it doesn't matter at all.
He's like, so he can look at the stat sheet and be like, I threw for 400 yards. That shit ain't on me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
All right, boys. Should we call it a night?
Yeah, we can.
All right, a nice 45-minute
I'm not going to lie with you. I think McCarthy stays. Honestly, I think everybody
stays too.
Yeah, I think everybody but Dak stays because the Eagles are just arrogant. You know what I mean?
My
so
thing
they will
is,
keep
it's just
Jalen Hurts.
so Dallas. It's so Jerry. Just not fire him to me because he feels like he's gotten softer in his old age, and
exactly.
They've already Dak. I don't see going anywhere because he was in the MVP race.
Yeah.
So I can't see Jerry being like, let's get rid of my possible MVP quarterback.
I don't know. Jerry Jones seemed furious after that game. So I think, but the only one that I truly could see leaving is Dak Prescott because he has just year after year he has blown up like this, and he is just even one of the players was saying if he doesn't see his first read, he just panics. And we saw that in that last game. He just kept trying to force the ball to CeeDee Lamb, no matter what the defense was throwing at him. It's like, all right, man, defenses see that. They'll read that immediately.
A CeeDee got mad real early in that game at him, and then I feel like Dak was pressing it more to him, and it was you don't react to your boy like that. He'll get his touches when he's open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just dial it up, and everything will be fine. If you're winning, he's not going to be mad either.
Yeah. True.
But the only way I see McCarthy leaving is if Bill Belichick is I will take this job right now.
I just don't see him staying. It's this has kind of been his MO his whole career, besides that 1 year with Green Bay. So it's I just think at some point they have to maybe they run it back, but like I said, you can't just keep insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it's your roster was great. I just don't think.
Even in the Romo era, it was Dallas. They'd be nice with it, and then they'd drop a extra the field goal kick to win the game. They'll botch that somehow and lose.
I think Dak's first.
It's tricky with Dak. I do think they need to move on from him, but it's one of those things where man, I don't know where you're. Trey Lance is such a gamble. And
true.
I don't. Yeah, where do you get? Maybe you could get a top pick. Maybe if you call up the Bears and you're hey.
But you know what's telling too?
Draft.
If you remember,
Dak Prescott
when Dak got hurt last year.
Yeah, and Cooper Rush came in
and they didn't really nothing changed. I mean, obviously their offense wasn't as good. But
there was he missed 4 games and he still led the league in turnovers, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They are and Andy, this is I'm a huge 76ers fan, but the Cowboys are the 76ers of the NFL. It's just they keep doing this thing over and over again, and every regular season they just look incredible, and they just think they're gonna, and we're falling right back into it this year as far as Joel's looking great. Maybe this is his year. He's gonna come out. He's gonna look great, and He never does. He just shows up. He looks terrible.
Like the Sixers changed it up.
The Sixers. That's this year. The Sixers have made it. Maybe we're doing it again, literally right now. But the 76ers did make a ton of changes this year.
They change it up. Like they go out and they fire Doc Rivers. They hire Nick Nurse.
Yeah.
They trade James Harden.
Yeah, this year they genuinely traded. This year they genuinely did a lot, and genuinely Embiid's looking the best he ever has. But I'm just saying it's very similar where they get to the playoffs and they just completely fold, even though they have a great team. You know?
Yeah. When you trust Daryl Morey too, I think James. I think Jerry Jones needs to have maybe step back a little bit and let other guys handle the personnel stuff. But I mean, it's one of those things where like their roster is great.
Yeah,
like their roster took such a huge jump this year. Brandon Cooks was really good, and that
I was talking to Dad the other day. Like, could you imagine that Houston team if Brandon Cooks was still with them? It'd be unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
you know.
But yeah, I mean, and then the emergence of Jake Ferguson too, who's a pretty solid tight end one. Like, you know, all over the place they have playmakers, so like there's no excuse for what they're doing. And to me, that's
Micah Parsons was terrible in that game.
Yeah,
that was one of the worst games of Micah Parsons' career.
That's just why TJ is the best fucking rusher in the league.
Exactly.
Also, let it be shown that
and Miles in big moments disappear.
Let it be known.
Always making big time plays in big moments. The big man TJ.
Unless he's got a sprain.
Unless he's hurt.
Unless he's hurt. I'm out.
But you can't do much about that.
Let it be known, Micah Parsons got absolutely bitched by Sam Cosmi last week too. Sam Cosmi, he was
to the point where he was like, he was literally just hitting Sam Cosmi post play because he was so pissed off.
Yeah,
Sam Cosmi. There was one point where he goes to rush, and Sam Cosmi just throws him to the ground. It was like, damn.
That was nice.
Yeah. So, but yeah. All right, we're at 52 minutes. Great. Everybody met our new producer, Brian Palm. We'll be back with our predictions for the divisional round. Yeehaw, everybody stay safe out there. We are the Professional Casual Fans. We now have a professional producer. Or casual producer.
Professional casual producer.
Professional casual.
Professional all right, that's it. We've loved having you guys here this week. We'll see you guys.
He does.
We started with one. We have to end with one. I'm just going to, if I do edit this, and that's my new job, this isn't going to be any of this footage. It's just going to be you slurping from the straw just over and over again for like an hour. That's going to be this episode. Anyway. We'll see you guys.
Adios. Don't hang up though. No.
Adios, everyone. We'll catch you Thursday or Friday.